Hello, viewers. You've waited 2 years for this video. 2 years ago, I brewed this rice wine, this huangjiu. This is a Chinese-style rice wine, and I pasteurized one of these bottles and left the other one alone. So this one I left alone, and this one I pasteurized. And these were bottled exactly 2 years ago. So now I'm going to taste them again and compare them. I have tasted these along the way. After 2 months, I tasted them. And also after 6 or 7 months, I tasted them. But these have just been left alone for the past year. These have been in the fridge, aging. And the idea of treating this kind of rice wine with heat is an ancient one, and it is the traditional way to, it's part of the traditional process of making this kind of rice wine. It's brewed and ages for a while, and finishes fermenting, but then it's treated with heat in certain kind of earthenware jars, and it's stored in those jars for 5 years or more. Now, I don't know well, I certainly didn't do it the traditional way, and these are in glass bottles instead of earthenware jars, so it's not the traditional aging method. But what I want to find out is there a difference in taste after these 2 years? What is the difference in taste after 2 years? And that also will tell me if my original method of heating the wine carefully, not too much, for a certain period of time, if that initial method was effective. So I've poured out a small glass of each of these, and I'm going to taste it right now. Okay, so here's the unpasteurized and here's the pasteurized. Okay, first of all, the aroma. The unpasteurized one does seem to have a fruitier aroma. And the pasteurized one, well, yeah, not as strong. Okay, now, yeah, it's dry, has a nutty aftertaste, not unpleasant. There's a bit of bitterness at the beginning, but not at the end. Some astringency at the end, but not bitterness. So there's a mild fruity flavor, maybe a bit like pear, but not sweet pear, very dry pear. Okay, now the pasteurized one. Does seem to be slightly sweeter. The pasteurized one does have a sharper flavor at the beginning. Yeah, these don't taste the same. For some reason, it's that sharpness that makes it, pasteurized one seem stronger in alcohol. And it is less fruity in flavor. What is that flavor? So this has a more spicy flavor. I don't really know why. Yeah, less fruity, more spicy. Okay, so but that's pretty good for 2 years. So the pasteurized one just has a small amount of sweetness. The unpasteurized one has pretty much no sweetness that I can taste. And I guess that's an effect of continued very slow fermentation in the aging process that the sugars would get, any residual sugars would eventually disappear unless you completely stopped the fermentation by pasteurizing. So I think that explains that part of the difference. The difference in flavor, the difference in flavor is just my impression, my description. At the moment, the unpasteurized one has a nicer aroma. That fruity aroma, even a bit floral, a bit rich. Yeah. Now, but I can see that eventually this richness might become like overripe or rotten kind of aroma, and the pasteurized one is not going in that direction, but it also doesn't have those fruity or floral aromas as much. Okay, so even after 2 years, even unpasteurized, it has survived. This is still wine. Probably what I have to do to get a full idea of the flavor is to try this warm. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So in a recent video, I showed you 3 methods for heating up huangjiu. And it intensifies the flavor. So maybe if I heat these up, I will be able to, taste them better and describe their different flavors better. So I'm going to do that right now. Heat up a small cup of the pasteurized and the unpasteurized wines and try them for you. So I warmed these up using the indirect boiling water method. I placed both of these cups into a pan with boiling water, and I took them out when they reached around 45 degrees Celsius, and they might be around 40 degrees right now, but should be right. Here's the unpasteurized, and this is the pasteurized. And so warmed up, you get a much broader flavor. It's easier to taste the alcohol in the unpasteurized one now. Maybe there is some sweetness here too. It's not 100% dry. But it hasn't turned sour either. So now the pasteurized one, yeah, I do get, okay, so I'm tasting more nutty flavors in the unpasteurized one, less of a nutty flavor, a bit harsher. In the pasteurized one. But the pasteurized one does taste a little bit simpler. So, okay, so the conclusion I have here, well, first thing, these do not taste the same. That's a big thing. Whatever I did, the kind of heat treatment I did, the pasteurization, did have an effect on how this wine evolved and how it tastes now. So these do not taste the same. Pasteurization does have an effect, and it does seem to take off some of the more floral and fruity aromas and flavors. However, the advantage is that it stabilizes it. The fermentation can be a bit unpredictable, or at least fermentation can evolve into something sour, and that obviously that's not good. That hasn't happened yet for this, and it's been 2 years, but it has evolved, and I can imagine this evolving into something that tastes a bit too overripe. I don't want it to evolve into something rotten. So that might eventually happen to the unpasteurized version, but the pasteurized version is stabilized. So any effect of aging is not due to fermentation; it's due to some other processes. Both of these still taste good, but it is interesting how different they taste with just that brief period of time applying heat. So the expectation is this should be stable, and that heat treatment is meant to age pretty much indefinitely. This can age for, like I said, standard aging time for this kind of wine would be 5 years. And I don't know if this wine is going to last that long, but I'll do my best to follow up on this over the years, and keep a bit of this wine around. I do like the nutty flavor that comes from aging. I do like that. And eventually this is supposed to darken in color as well. We'll see if that happens. Both of these are still very light in color. They both look the same. Okay, so that's what I learned from tasting this after 2 years. Thank you for waiting this length of time for the follow-up, and I hope you're brewing some interesting wine and or drinking some interesting rice wine. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.